This is Karen with new clevelandradio.net, and it is time for What in the World with
Paul Seaburn. Hi, Karen.
Hey Paul, how are you?
I'm good. I'm here with Karen Hale, the media mogul at newclevelandradio.net. And it's Tuesday. That means it's time for What in the World. Our good friend John Denalo, our co-host, or is it, I believe he's a co-host today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is.
I've been
Okay.
elevated. Okay,
You've
good.
been elevated. Yes. Better than being aggravated, John.
Right.
I'm with you folks on that. Right with you. Okay.
Okay, good. All right. So John is here with our special segment, "What in the World of Sports." Plus, he's as always he has the very pithy commentary and is our trivia buff. So I will attempt to stump him a couple of times today, but I rarely do. He's anyway. So we'll see what happens. So we're here at newclevelandradio.net with "What in the World." The show that is your alternative to all of the bad, weird, not weird, but the bad and the depressing and the political and all the other stuff that's going on.
It's also weird.
Well, it is. It's weird in a different way. We're weird in a good way.
Twist to it, at least. A strange twist, at least. A strange twist.
There you go. So yeah, so this is your weekly respite from the news from the regular media. Our goal is to have fun. My motto is real news, sometimes strange, always funny. And I hope that at the end of the hour, you feel the same way. We're coming to you either live, most likely on YouTube. So
Absolutely.
welcome. Yeah, this is great. I really love this. While you're there, take a look at our other shows and also some of Karen's other shows, because newclevelandradio.net is the place to go for podcasts these days. So please try them all out. So let's get right to it. John, Karen, this has been another one of those weird weeks as always. They they just get weirder and more fun as life goes on. So, I'm glad to do this every week because it's always a big pick me up for me. So this week in What in the World, we are going to New York, where there's a huge Bigfoot sighting over the past week. And John, I even have pictures. So, and they're in focus.
Well, I'll tell you, Paul, that is so much better than what we have been exposed to in the past.
Oh, thanks, John.
I don't mean to rub it in.
Pictures, yeah.
Well, come on now. We're looking for crystal clarity or something close to it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll go for something close.
Okay, good.
And close, like in hand grenades, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then things are bad every place else. Things could be worse. And we're going to go to Korea, South Korea, where there's not a political story, but a story about crocodiles that walk on two legs. So get ready to hear about that. Yeah. Oh, that laugh of disbelief. Then we go to we're gonna bring John in on this one. A world record was set this week for stabbing kiwis. Now, these are the fruit, obviously, and I don't have one here. I ate them all. Not the birds, and not the New Zealanders, who are also called kiwis. So we've got we're going to talk about that. John has some sword-related sports trivia for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Then we're going to go to France for an underwear story. You'll love this, John. Karen, I know that has seen it.
Wait a second. I'm going to love underwear.
This is what?
You said I'm going to love underwear?
Underwear, yeah. An underwear story from France. No, I said you've seen the story.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to love the underwear.
I'm not. Yeah, right. That's right. This is not the show where you talk about kinky subjects. Or maybe it is. I don't know. That's not where we make our name. Then we're going to Poland. So this is for the lovely Donna. We're going to go to Poland, where Poland accidentally invaded the Czech Republic last week. This is the craziest.
How can you accidentally invade a country?
Good question, John. We're going to find out.
Okay, good.
and plenty of other strange stories and weird news. Plus, we'll play Bluff the co-host at the end. Always a fun time.
Yeah, always
Real
fun
news,
time.
that's right. Real news, sometimes strange, always funny. Only here at newclevelandradio.net. So let's get right to it. Let's start with Kentucky. So in Kentucky, and you know, Kentucky's the home of Kentucky bourbon. Really, I don't think you have to say Kentucky. You just say bourbon, and everybody knows it's Kentucky. The distilleries in Kentucky have been closed because of the coronavirus shutdown. They finally are able to open up and give tours and have tastings, you know, like the wineries do. So they have bourbon tasting at the distillery, which is huge news for the people in Kentucky, because they've been stuck at home watching MASH, you know, get up close to the screen when Hawkeye and Trapper John are distilling the booze that they made,
Right.
you know, for tips on how to make a homemade distillery, which is what they're called, right, Karen?
That's right.
Not that you've ever talked about making one, but if you want to learn how, you can watch MASH, which is amazing to me. That this show focusing on the Army and the military had it really almost as another character, the still in the swamp, as the tent was called. I always thought the Army should use that in recruiting ads. You know, you can join the Army and you get your own still. You know, like the slogan would be, here it comes, the Army of 100 proof. Oh no, maybe not.
No, that's not too bad, Paul. That'll pass. That's okay. It's all right. I'll give it. I'll say it's okay.
You'll take that one. Okay.
I'll take that one.
So John, I'm sure you were a big MASH fan. The still appeared in the very first episode, so it was a key secondary character in the show, and was the center of the story numerous times. Well, a couple of them had to do with Frank Burns, Major Burns, confiscating it, trying to destroy it. Once he had radar, disassemble it. So, and that was the center of the show. Turns out they had 3 different stills that they used on MASH, because one was destroyed. The earliest one was a metal barrel, nowhere near as sophisticated as the one that they had at the end, which I happen to have a picture of. So
Of course you do.
All right, you have a picture.
So let's see if you can see that right there. It should look familiar to MASH fans, the famous MASH still.
Okay.
Very sophisticated, by the way. And if you want to see it today, it is in the Smithsonian of all places. So,
really?
Yeah, you know, it's an icon. So I know you're wondering, you know, they weren't drinking real booze because they had to remember their line, but they were pretending to drink something. Do you know what they were pretending to drink?
Martini.
What was that, Karen?
Ginger ale.
Ginger, with an emphasis on the gin.
Yes.
John, you have a guess?
Martinis.
Martini, okay, which is made from gin.
Gin.
Gin and vermouth, that's right. So where would you get juniper beans?
Berries.
Berries, juniper berries in South Korea, which is where they allegedly were from. They don't exist in South Korea, certainly not during the war, but they don't grow in South Korea. So Hawkeye used to say that he was drinking gin, and in fact, he would refer to it as the breakfast of champions, which I thought was pretty funny. But what the you know, people who have far more time on their hands than I do and to dissect these episodes say that they were probably drinking a Chinese liquor known as banju, which was made from rice. So somehow they fermented the rice and fed it through all the circular tubing, and out came this stuff. 120 proof is what banju is. So yeah, they were drinking serious stuff. But one of the reasons why you don't see homemade stills anymore is because you can actually get moonshine at the liquor store. I was the last time I was in the liquor store, I was just wandering around looking at what's new in the world of alcoholic beverages. And sure enough, there's bottles that are labeled moonshine.
Really?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Oh, don't look so disbelieving, Karen.
I am disbelieving.
Okay, yeah, really. So I don't know if it tastes like actual moonshine or not. From what I understand, moonshine is clear, kind of like Everclear, I think is what we used to refer to it as. So now, moonshine sounds like, and from our experience, is an American term. Would you not say that?
Right.
Yeah.
I would say so, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Turns out it's from England. Um, in yeah, in the earliest known um, uh, usage of the word moonshine was found in a 1785 dictionary called Gross's Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue. Don't you think we should bring that back, Karen?
Oh, I think we should. We should use it in Scrabble.
Oh, no kidding. By now it's got to be a 10-volume set
Right.
because we've added many terms to it. So that's the so that was my little thing. So yeah, we all know moonshine comes from uh, you. It's illegal to distill at home, so you have to do it at night, and you do it by the light of the moon. That's the easy part to figure out. So, anyways, I like that. So MASH was one of the all-time greatest.
It really was a great series, I
Great
think.
show, yeah, great ending. Everything turned out good. So,
Sure.
yeah. So, all right, now so let's move to France because I know Karen's been waiting to hear about the underwear.
Yes, I am.
So, a farmer in France revealed on the internet that he tests the quality of the soil on his farm by burying a brand new set of men's underwear and then digging them up weeks later to see how much is left after the bugs and the earthworms and the fungus and everything else eats away at them. So the more that's eaten away, the better the soil is, the more worms and bugs that will, eat and poop, which is what ultimately fertilizes vegetables. Yeah. So I happen to have the picture of his last pair of underwear that he dug up. And if you can see that.
Oh my.
Now, I think I speak for all men when I say that I could have gotten another year's worth of wear out of that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I guess my husband is not as strange as I thought he was.
No, really? Does he? Now, does he throw it out, Karen, or do you?
I don't throw anything of his out anymore.
Oh, anymore? I like. Very
That's
good.
a qualifier. That's a qualifier.
Definitely a qualifier. Yes, anymore. And we guys are notorious for doing that. So the bugs only eat the white part. The way he explained it was that they can't eat the elastic. So that's how he can find the underwear after he buries it. He looks for the elastic. And I guess the label, fruit of the worm, is
fruit of the worm. Well, it's not fruit of the worm. Oh.
So I was thinking, if worms and bugs really do eat underwear,
cotton or whatever, right? It's cotton.
Yeah. Could we train them? Maybe this is a guy thing, of course, because we never wash our underwear. That's Karen's job, or the lovely Donna, or the lovely Annette, and spouses and girlfriends and moms around the world. But if I had trained worms that I could just throw into the drawer every night with my underwear, it would just eat the portions that were dirty.
Oh, no.
You don't like that, Karen?
No.
I even have a name for it. The name for the detergent made from worms would be called Worm and Hammer.
Oh.
So,
well, we're on a slippery slope right now.
Yes, we are.
Wait, John, here it comes.
Oh,
that was my wrong sound effect. Here,
it sounds like Dark Shadows.
Wait, that's you. Let me explain. Our good friend Tex Chick, I hope she's listening, down in Texas, of course, sent me a set of sound effects. So I had one picked out for trivia, and let's try this one. That was a mosquito. How about this one? There we go.
I found it.
Okay, so that's the last we'll hear of that. So as far as trivia goes, speaking of underwear, what do you refer to a brand new pair of your husband's underwear as? Rich's underwear.
What do I refer to them as?
Yes. What do they call?
Clean boxers.
Clean boxers. John, what do you refer to them as?
I think just boxers.
Boxers. Okay. Well, the underwear that was in the picture was not a boxer, but was briefs. Okay, which was the common term for
Sure.
them. Or
Right.
we probably still call them tighty whities, which is a more of a slang term.
Uh-huh.
Those are the ones. The reason why most people go to boxers is because they have bad memories of wearing briefs in high school when they got wedgies, or worse, the atomic wedgie. John, do you know what the atomic wedgie is?
I know, but I know what a wedgie is, so that's enough.
You never got one. That was I seem to remember. No, the atomic wedgie is when you pull the underwear up, which is the wedgie part from behind, and then pull it over the person's head.
Oh my God.
Now, wait a minute. I remember something. Atomic bomb. You remember that, Paul?
No, I don't.
Atomic bomb would be, if you wanted to prank somebody, you would take atomic bomb and put them into briefs or boxers. And they're atomic. The name, it's an apt name, okay, because it burned like
yeah. I think, and I just heard this. Okay, I think Vicks Vapor Rub works the same way, and I do recall, and this goes back to our fraternity days when someone told a story of putting Nair in underwear.
Oh.
I think
for
this. I think that's verifiable, Paul. I think that's verifiable. Anyway.
So to go further down this rabbit hole, modern men's underwear was invented. The briefs and the boxers were a fairly new invention. They were invented in 1935 by the Cooper's Company of Chicago, and they called them jockey shorts. Now, it had nothing to do with the little people who ride horses.
Mm-hmm.
They referred to them as jockey because they offered more support than a jock strap.
That makes sense.
In the rear.
Sure. All right.
Now, boxers, of course, were introduced right about at the same time in 1935, named for the shorts that boxers wear when they're fighting in the ring.
They're fighting.
However, there's another type of underwear that men wear that's also named for boxers. And I know I'm not even going to ask you because I know you won't get this one. The long john, which is a brief that reaches your ankles,
right,
is named for John L. Sullivan, who was a famous heavyweight boxer in the early 1900s, I believe.
1890. I think
1890s. Okay.
Yeah.
John L. Sullivan used to wear. He didn't wear boxer shorts. He wore these long boxer pants, I guess they would be called. And when they became popular, they named them long johns after John L. Sullivan. So, wearing underwear has become much more important since we've all been working at home. Because what you don't want to do is be doing a Zoom conference like we're having here, a little Zoom meeting, and accidentally stand up before you remember that you don't have your men's underwear on.
Oh.
Mom used to say, always wear clean underwear.
She did.
Today she says always wear clean underwear if you're doing Zoom. I guess always wear underwear. So
that's the moral of the story.
the moral of this story, thank you, John. If moms were here today, if they saw what we were doing today, who knows what they'd say. So anyways, so now we go to Australia. Always a good source of strange news. A dog in Australia last week dug up a 2-pound truffle that is worth $1,000. A 2-pound truffle worth $1,000.
Wow.
Obviously a trained dog. You know, they normally have trained pigs digging for truffles, but I guess if you're going to train something and have to keep it at home when you're not out looking for truffles, a dog would be a better choice, I think.
Yes.
But what amazed me even more is not only that someone trained a dog to look for truffles, but that someone trained people to pay $1,000 for a mushroom. Who came up with this idea, and can I get in on it? That's what I want to know.
And why do they call certain chocolate candies truffles? They have nothing to do with mushrooms.
You know, that's one that I've always wanted to find out, Karen. I'm going to look that one up for a few.
Okay.
Because I've wondered about that myself. Truffles are mushrooms.
Right.
They're mushrooms. They're a fungus. They're like the thing that you get that causes athlete foot. I don't pay $1,000 for a pound of athlete's foot. Who is paying $1,000 for a mushroom?
You're a wise man, Paul Seaburn.
And that's not the limit, John. The world record for English white truffles, because there's all different colors, I guess, is $3,600 for a pound of them.
My gosh.
And someone actually sold a single truffle weighing 2 pounds for $300,000 at an auction. Now, here's my question. The dog's eventually going to figure out that you want that truffle. You really want it because it's worth $1,000. What if he doesn't give it back to you? Then what are you going to do? You know, how do you get that fungus out of his mouth? And, you know, I've owned a number of dogs in my lifetime. I've never been able to train them to give me things. And my dogs have never found anything expensive other than the lovely Donna's shoes. But take them outside. They certainly don't find expensive stuff. They find stuff that they made or stuff that other animals leave or other animals, dead animals, but no truffles. So I don't understand that one. That's baffling to me, as they say.
Yes, it is. It is a bewilderment.
It is. So now let's do a little bit of a military story here in Poland, of all places. So this is a story, John, you're not going to believe. The Polish military admitted last week that they accidentally invaded the Czech Republic, which is right across the border, kind of like World War II, it sounds like. Accidentally invaded the Czech Republic last month, occupied the area briefly, and then left, and apologized to the Czech government, saying it was a quote-unquote misunderstanding. So, you know, Poland thinks this is a misunderstanding. The Czech Republic says, you know, this is how the Who Stole the Kishka War started. You know, you guys coming over grabbing sausage when we're not looking. But here's what happened. They were putting up new border gates, which, you know, do border gates really get that much wear and tear that you got to put up new ones? And they, instead of putting it where the old one was, they forgot and put it in the wrong place. So they ended up being slightly over the Czech Republic's border, and had a number of people go back and forth through it, probably pointing out that, gee, you know, we used to cross way back there. What happened? They don't know. So they put this border gate up in the wrong place. So this whole thing sounds like another comedy military show we all used to watch, which was Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, one of my favorites.
That's exactly it. It's something that the Germans would have done on Hogan's Heroes.
Right.
And of course you ask Sergeant Schultz and he says, I see nothing.
Yeah.
He wouldn't know. So I mentioned the Kishka Wars. There's no such thing as the Kishka Wars, by the way. But there is a song called "Who Stole the Kishka?"
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm familiar with the song.
famous song. John, have you ever had a Kishka?
Yes.
You have. Okay, so you know what it is.
I
Karen,
know
I'm
what
sure
it is.
you know what a Kishka is.
Yeah. My bubby used to make it. It's intestine stuffed with potatoes and meat.
There
Mhm.
you go. That's right. Well, they can be stuffed with anything,
Right.
grains, all different kinds of meat. I like to say that every culture in the world has some form of kishka. The British call it the blood sausage. When I lived down in Texas, in New Orleans, they called it the boudin, which was had much spicier. The Scots call it haggis, same thing.
Yes.
Except it's not an intestine. I think it's a stomach, but otherwise it's.
I think it's more of a stomach also.
Yes, yes. So the so that's the Kishka. The song "Who Stole the Kishka" was composed in the 1950s by Walter Solek, famous polka band leader in the Polka Hall of Fame, which is in Cleveland, Ohio, which is the reason why I wanted to bring that up. Walter Solek was known as the Clown Prince of Polka. How would you like to be known as that for your life? He probably has
Well,
it.
I'll tell you this: if nothing else, it's unique.
It is, and he was called, and this is a big idol of mine. He was called the Polish Spike Jones. Spike Jones was the famous comedy. Oh, there's Rich. Hi, Rich.
Hey, Rich.
You missed it. We were talking about your underwear.
Oh,
We were.
thanks.
Don't worry, Karen will explain it to you later. So the Kishka or the Polish Spike Jones is in the Polka Hall of Fame, as is Frankie Yankovic, who stole the Kishka famous. Actually, they give away Grammy Awards for polkas, and Frank Yankovic won a number of them. I don't think Walter Solek did, but he's the clown prince of polka. So you can't. Who cares about awards when you're the clown prince of polka? On that note, we go to Taiwan, where this is I love this one, and I don't have a picture of it, and you'll know why. A Polish politician in Taiwan lost the bet on an election. When it wasn't his, it was someone else's election, and to pay off the bet, he had to break 53 wooden chopsticks using only his butt cheeks. Now, I'll let you use your imagination to figure out exactly how he did that. And that's why I don't have a picture, because it's not
You don't.
work. This is a legitimate thing. It's some kind of weird martial art exercise. I think it's jujutsu is what it's called. But that's what they train to break things, and that's one of the ways they train. I certainly don't want to see this turned into a professional sport. I looked, there's no world records. Otherwise, I'd be telling you. I don't think 53 was a world record. He did have a grimace on his face as he was doing it. And you can use your imagination exactly why he had a grimace. But speaking of world records, I do have a world record, and that belongs to David Rush. Now, you're not going to recognize his name, but I'm going to tell you, I've been talking about this guy for weeks now. He's the guy in Idaho who set the world record for drinking the most lemon juice in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, drinking a liter of lemon juice in 17 seconds, drinking a liter of lime juice in just about the same amount of time. This guy owns 150 Guinness World Records. That's all he does. Even when he's not in coronavirus lockdown, he competes for Guinness World Record. If you're a fan of America's Got Talent, he was on last week's episode and didn't make the cut. I don't know what he was doing, but he didn't make the cut. So he was so depressed about not making the cut that he went back to Idaho and set another world record. He set the world record for slicing with a sword 65 kiwis that someone tossed to him one at a time, and he sliced them in the air while standing on a balance board. Now, you know what a balance board is.
Yes.
That's they see him in the circus, with the board on top of a cylinder. So
Sure.
the juggler's doing. So he's balanced on this thing, someone's throwing kiwis at him, and he manages to slice 65 of them in a row before he misses.
Wow.
That's talent.
It's amazing.
The clown prince of kiwi slicing. So he's so excited. He's hoping this gets him on a new talent show called Lancing with the Stars.
Oh.
I know. I'm not even going to try to.
Yeah.
We'll just move right on. But think about, how do you practice for this? The poor guy, he must not have any ceiling fans in his house. Probably doesn't have any, no light fixtures on the ceiling.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, he probably has no cobwebs in the corners because he's busy waving that thing
Right.
around. Nice, clean place. Used an actual sword, okay, not a fake sword. It was an actual sharp sword. Used real kiwis, not the bird or the New Zealand people. Which brings us to the question, which came first, the kiwi fruit or the kiwi bird? What do you think, Karen?
Has to be the kiwi fruit from the Garden of Eden.
The kiwi fruit was in the Garden of Eden? I didn't see that cartoon. Well, I mean, I that Bible verse.
I'm just, pulling your leg. That's it.
Oh, you're pulling my leg. You're trying to see if I have underwear on or not.
Oh.
John, which came first, the bird or the fruit?
It's got to be the fruit.
You say it's the fruit. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Kiwi fruit is native to China, which gives you a hint that both of you were wrong. It used to be called, it was originally called the Chinese gooseberry. I don't know the Chinese name for it, but it wasn't kiwi. Didn't become kiwi until World War II, when they took it to New Zealand, of all places, which isn't that far from China. And the climate was suitable for growing kiwi fruit. During World War II, American soldiers were stationed in New Zealand. They ate them. They liked them so much that they took them home. And they wanted to know what these were. At that time, I don't remember if China if we were on good terms or bad terms with China, but they all noticed that it looked like the little bird called the kiwi. So they said, well, we'll just call it kiwi fruit.
Aww.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, kind of a nice story, I guess.
Sure.
For me it is.
No, I think it's okay, Paul. It'll pass.
So thank you, John. Yeah, better say that because you're up next. We can always talk more about underwear here. So
no, let's dispense with that. Let's dispense with that subject. We're on to something else.
So when I was writing about this, I was thinking about swords and sports. And there's one sport that's based on swords, and that is the sport of fencing. And I know very little about fencing. So when I know very little about something, I always turn to my old friend John Dinalo and ask him for some trivia on weird stuff from the world of fencing. So take it away, John. And I've got a couple of notes here myself, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I think I've got a few points that are kind of interesting. Let's start. So fencing traces its roots to the development of swordsmanship for duels and self-defense. Its origin, supposedly Spain, and some of the most significant books on fencing were written by Spanish fencers.
Okay.
For example, the Treatise on Arms was written by Diego de Valera between 1458 and 1471, and it is one of the oldest surviving manuals on Western fencing.
Probably still used, yeah.
Yeah, still used, correct. In spite of the title, the book of Diego Valera was more related to heraldry, not about fencing. And this came at a time before dueling was banned by the Catholic monarchs.
The Catholics banned dueling?
Well, the Catholic monarchs banned
Yeah.
dueling. Yes, they did.
That doesn't sound like the Pope I know.
Well,
anyway.
well, we're talking hundreds of years, Paul. So
that's right. Yeah, one of those old Italian popes. You're right. Yeah,
that's right. Look at it in context. But
yeah. So you brought up dueling. That's what a lot of people think about when they think about fencing. Dueling.
Correct.
And once the guns came around, they stopped using swords, or did they? Does anybody duel with swords anymore?
swords were still used primarily by cavalry, and we'll go into that in a moment. That's a good
Oh, okay.
lead in here. So, as Spain was making conquest, okay, Spanish forces, they carried fencing around the world, particularly to southern Italy, and which is one of the major areas of strife between both nations. Fencing was mentioned in the play The Merry Wives of Windsor, which was written prior to 1602.
Oh, Shakespeare. Shakespeare, really?
Yes. And
What was Merry Wives doing with swords, I wonder?
well, probably out to do something not good. Leave it up to your imagination. Leave it up to your
I
imagination.
remember that part of the play, come to think of it. Okay.
Okay, good. So anyway, so for example, fencers, do they really duel anymore? Well, here's what we have found. Not anymore, but as recently as the 1924 Olympics, the captain of the Italian foil team and the son of the coach for the Hungarian team entered into a real duel over a scoring controversy.
Oh, a sports fight. All
Yes.
right.
The
Wow.
duel was brought near the Hungarian border with heavy sabers and ended after just 2 minutes. According to legend, the Hungarian won by landing a blow to the side of the Italian's forehead.
Oh, nice.
Thankfully, this was not a fight to the death. The duel was stopped, but the Italian was temporarily blinded and required 12 stitches to close his
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, you don't run with sharp things like scissors and swords.
They tell you not to do that. That's right. They tell you to do that. But
Well, how about some world records? You got any world records?
yes, I do. For example,
All
the
right.
longest official fencing bout ever was, believe it or not, over 5 hours long.
Wow.
The duel was set up by U.S. Olympians in 2005 to raise money for the charity USFA.
5 hours. I can't hold my arm over my head for 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, how can you stand for 5 hours with balance, right?
Exactly.
And then trying to be able to do an athletic move. Think of that.
I just did. Yeah.
Well, that's something I know I can't do either. So we're on to something else. But the American foilists, there's two foilists, Jonathan Toymkin and Jedediah Dupree. They took a 5-minute break each hour, and amazingly, were standing even after the 5 hours of combat.
Amazing. How did they go to the bathroom with those fencing costumes?
I have no data on that, but you have to leave it to your imagination. Think of that. Oh man. Hopefully they're young guys. Hopefully they're younger guys. If they're older, they're in trouble. But anyway,
so
Tompkin won. He made the final touch for the ending score, and the score is not what you would think it would be. The score was 208 to 209.
Wow, in 5 hours.
In 5 hours. And along with being Olympians, they are now both Guinness World Record holders for the longest lasting duel in history.
In history, wow. Well, yeah, a lot of duels ended up fatally, so they at least survived to get their world record plaque. So now, I don't know anything about the rules, but I do know one thing. And we were talking about boxing before, and it's illegal to hit below the belt in boxing. And I have heard that it's illegal to stab below the belt. I'm not sure if that's the proper terminology, but in fencing, is that true?
You are exactly right, Paul. So the reason that the saber doesn't count below the belt is you may not be aware of the origins of sabers, but it is historically related to fighting in the cavalry on horses. So because it was considered unchivalrous to strike a horse during battle, the same rules were applied to the sport. However, since modern day fencers don't ride horses, the most logical solution was to only count hits above the waist.
Oh, I love that. So they cared more about the horse than they did about the competitor.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's be brutally honest. Exactly right.
They paid more for the horse, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so I was making fun of the uniforms before, but the uniforms are white, and from what I understand, there's a reason why they're white.
Yes, exactly right. Back when fencing was done with the intention of drawing blood, it was easy to spot a hit as the blood leaked through the clothing.
Oh, I'm sorry to ask.
However, as the sport moved away from doing actual physical harm, fencers used ink dabs at the end of their swords to mark a hit. Obviously, white was the easiest color for the ink dab to show up against, and the rest is fencing history.
Wow.
Ah,
Well, how about that, Karen? Now, the one they score electronically now, and from what I understand, there's the garb that they wear is wired, and they can tell when one sword touches the other person. But it turns out that it has to hit with a certain amount of pressure in order for it to score. And from what I saw, it was a 750 grams of force is required before the buzzer goes off, which, believe, just like the horse story, John, is based on ancient
metrics.
Right. Yeah, it's the amount of force required. They figured this out. The amount of force required to stab somebody and draw blood, 750 grams. Something to keep in mind the next time you're in a sword fight. Like, holy smoke.
I thankfully have never been in a sword fight, and actually I hope I'm never in a sword fight, but
I'll bet you've been in some butter knife fights or
yes, that goes without saying. That goes without saying. I won't go into the details.
Yeah, it turns out that I noticed this: the sale of plastic swords and foam swords has gone up lately. Now that could be in response to maybe buying less guns or something like that, or the sabers from Star Wars. But I thought that was interesting. That
it's kind of an interesting point.
It is an interesting sport. In fact, my neighbor is a competitor in fencing. I should have asked him for some information, but coronavirus and all that.
Right, sure.
Did you find anything about the Akron famous sword person, Richard Hale?
A famous sports person, Richard Hale, that was a fencer?
Sword person.
Oh, sword person. No.
Oh, I had a foil. I still have my foil and my mask and everything.
No kidding. Well, we should have. I didn't realize that, Rich. Of course, we should have.
Last
never
time
mind.
Practice was in 1987, I think.
Nope. I was going to say, when was the last time you had that fencing outfit on?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I bet you can still wear that beekeeper hat that they wear. No offense, obviously.
That actually still fits.
The hat still fits. Okay. Your head hasn't grown. That's good to hear, Rich.
That's good enough.
Well, if you still have your sword, you might want to keep it handy because of this next story, which my theme of. Oh, thank you, by the way, John. That was great stuff.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Well, why didn't no other show has What in the World of Sports with John Dinello. We are the premier sports-related paranormal podcast, strange news podcast in the world.
Absolutely right.
Thank you. I mean, and you're welcome. You can tell I'm excited about this next story. We're going to South Korea, where archaeologists, fortunately, discovered that at one time in our history, there were crocodiles, huge crocodiles, 39-foot crocodiles.
Whoa.
That walked around on two legs, Karen. Walked and ran around, not just walked around, but ran around on two legs with their tails bobbing behind them. So, crocodiles are mean, nasty dinosaurs that are still around today. They're in Africa, they're in India, they're in Australia, they're in the United States, in Florida in particular. They get less publicity in the United States than alligators do because we have bigger alligators. But in general, crocodiles are far more fierce and far more dangerous than alligators, even though the way you tell the difference is crocodiles have a narrower mouth, but they still can take one big nasty chunk out of your flesh. So in Australia today, the record for crocodiles is well over 23 feet, but that's 16 feet less than 39, which is how big they got in Korea.
39 feet.
39 feet, John. I can just imagine if we had those running around today. To me, if we were doing a movie, it could be called like Jaws on Land, or Crocnado would be a great one.
Yeah, right.
I'd
There
like to do that, Crocnado.
Right, okay.
So the guy who found them was he found tracks of these crocodiles, and he knew something was fishy because he only found 2 sets of tracks, huge crocodile tracks, but only 2 of them. So he told the BBC, he says, they put 1 foot in front of the other. They could pass a sobriety test walking on a straight line. So, my question is, what cop is going to ask a crocodile who's driving in a car, which is amazing in itself, to get out of the car and perform a sobriety test? Step out of the car, Mr. Dial.
Yeah.
Look, close your eyes and touch your nose. Poor crocodiles got those little arms. They
Right, they
should
do,
be able to
yes.
do that.
That's right. That's right.
So he's got to walk the line, and then I'm sure the cop will say something stupid like "walk the line" or "see you later, alligator."
Oh.
And next thing you know,
You were just dying to work that in there, Paul. You just
I
dying.
had to work that one in there. You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming.
This is something that archaeologists have never seen before. Crocodiles or alligators, for that matter, walking on 2 legs. The tracks were narrow, and they said he described it as more like a crocodile walking on a tightrope. So they were, the tracks were in a very, very straight line, which of course, says to me, wow, that'd be pretty cool to see a crocodile walk on a tightrope. I'd pay to see that. I watched America's Got Talent, and they have the dogs doing they had rats doing tightropes too, but a crocodile, I'd pay to see that. Yeah, I would vote for that.
All
I'd
right.
call in, yeah. So anyway, so there were no front footprints. So they put all that together, and they said these 39 foot, and they figured out how tall they were by how deep the footprints went into the mud that they were walking on.
That's logical. That's
Yeah,
logical.
yeah. So they could go on land or on water. They were 39 feet long, gave them more speed and range. So fortunately they lived before humans did. Otherwise, humans may not be around today.
Right.
And I just can't imagine. I worry about raccoons. That's the biggest animal I have to deal with in my yard. So obviously things could be worse. I have a picture of one, by the way, not an actual picture, but an amazing hand-drawn facsimile. Let's see, there we go. So there's one next to a guy. This, I think, was a baby. That doesn't look like it's 39 feet long.
No.
But,
Not fully developed.
but no, not fully developed yet. That's right, John. It was, that's pretty perceptive of you for a history major. You paid attention in science class.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so speaking of science, we're going to run through this one real quickly here so we can get to
Sure.
the co-host. But this was a great story for me this week. There was a huge story about a Bigfoot sighting in New York City, not New York City, but in New York State, in the Hudson River Valley, which, Karen, you're a big Catskills
Yeah.
person. You know where that's at.
That's where my family is. Yep.
Where your family is. Okay, so we need to have them start watching for Bigfoot. This was near Cairo. I don't know if you know where that is, a small town
Sort of. Yeah.
near the valley, north of New York City, obviously. And what they found was they didn't see an actual Bigfoot, but they found these huts, they call them, where a Bigfoot spends the night. And then they also found sticks piled deliberately, like in triangles and teepee shapes, which is how Bigfoot allegedly communicates with other Bigfoot. So, so I did this story earlier in the week when that first came out, and I was contacted by the investigator who actually went out and saw it two different times. Really nice guy. Moved from Iowa, where he was a Bigfoot investigator in Iowa, which is a huge Bigfoot territory. Goes to New York, which apparently is even bigger, and he just gets there and has the story of the year so far with this Bigfoot story. So name is Seth. So So Seth went out in May after a friend of his called him up and said, "Hey, you're not going to believe what I saw in the woods." So the first thing he found when he went walking out there are these uh, branches and sticks leaning against each other. And I've got a pretty clear picture. Obviously, it's not a picture of Bigfoot, but it's a picture of the sticks. So, when it comes to pictures, clear is good. But that wasn't the best part. And I always wonder, I've heard about these piles of sticks before, and I always wonder what's the message that one Bigfoot is giving to another Bigfoot with these sticks. Are they saying, Bigfoot was here? Are they saying next good place to take a dump, 10 miles? What exactly are they telling other Bigfoot? I don't know. I haven't gotten the answer. But the best part was they found this hut where they believe, allegedly, of course, that the Bigfoot built it to sleep in. And they took I just lost my picture here. There we go. Here's the hut. So it doesn't seem that big. I don't know how big this Bigfoot was, but it's covered. There's a canopy of leaves and stuff on the top of it. And, to Bigfoot researchers, this was a big thing. So, but then they go out a second day. They found that the first day goes back to second day. Then it gets good, because then he's out there and he says the second day they heard knocking. Now, Karen, I know we've talked about Bigfoot before. That's another way they're supposedly communicate.
Right.
Is by knocking. And John, I know you remember that famous Bigfoot song about Bigfoot knocking by Tony Sasquatch and Dawn. Called, the song was "Knock 3 times on the cedar if you love me, twice on the pine if the answer is no." I know you remember that song.
I think that's a great.
So anyway, so they heard the knocking, and then later on they heard whistling, which is another way that Bigfoot allegedly communicate with each other. A whistle that's very low and very long, so you can tell the difference between Bigfoot whistling and a human or a bird. And then they heard footsteps. They heard very heavy footsteps, and every time they turned around where they thought they heard the footsteps, they would stop. And then they turn around and walk a little bit and they hear the footsteps again. So it's like Bigfoot's in the CIA, he's trained on tracking.
Undercover. He's undercover.
Yeah, which is a rumor. That's one of the conspiracy theories that Bigfoot may be in the CIA. So anyway, and then the biggest thing, John, I don't know if you've been in on these Bigfoot conversations, but a lot of people report that when the Bigfoot gets disturbed, it throws rocks at humans. So sure enough, that's what happened. They were standing out there and they heard something huge hit the ground like about 25 feet away that sounded like a boulder. So they went to look for it, and while they couldn't find the actual rock, they found other rocks that looked like they had been thrown that were stuck in the ground. And they found a big 25-pound rock that had been lifted out of the hole. The hole was open. The hole was filled with acorns and acorn shells and covered with dried leaves, like something was storing food. And it was far too big to be a squirrel. And humans don't eat acorns, at least nobody that I know of. So, that's what they think. They think that that they encountered, a close encounter of the Bigfoot kind. The Bigfoot was just there storing food for. This is spring already, so I guess, for a snack. And, if you're listening, I have tons of acorns in my yard. I'll even crack them open for you, okay? Crack a few to get you stuff. I'll leave a nutcracker out for you, please. But this investigation occurred during the day. So believe it or not, these people are brave. Seth he's gonna go camping at the site of that hut and stay overnight and take an infrared camera and whatever else they take out there. So he promised me that he'd give me an exclusive on whatever he finds on his next go around. So I'm looking forward to that. That's
Well, we'll be fun. We're looking forward to hearing about it. Sure.
yeah, yeah. Maybe we'll get some clear pictures, John. I know that's what you want.
I'm always after that, Paul.
We all want it.
Are we doing Bluff the co-host, I hope?
Here we come. Here we come. Thank you for that reminder, John. We are on track to do Bluff the co-host. The everybody's favorite strange news game. If you haven't played before, I have 3 stories that are similar to the ones I just told you. The difference is they may or may not be true. If one, 2, or all 3 may be a bluff, it's up to Karen and John and Rich, my co-host, co-host, and co-co, how many co-hosts to decide. As always, no wagering, hands on the buzzers. Let's get right to the first story. Are you ready?
Okay.
Sure. Let's go.
Okay, first story comes from Colorado, home of the Rocky Mountains. It turns out there are some remote caves near the tops of some of the Rocky Mountains where a few guys who want to get away from it all by living in the caves as hermits. They generally get their own food and have no contact with other humans, but a few of them really miss drinking beer. That's where the Rocky Beer Climbers come in. This group of mountain climbers stays in practice by delivering beer to these hermits at no charge. They just do it because they like the challenge of climbing with a large weight on their backs. And 12 packs of beer is a large weight. It keeps them in practice, it keeps them in shape, and they're doing something for their fellow caveman. Real or bluff? The Rocky Beer Climbers delivering beer to hermits in caves on the tops of Rocky Mountains. A lot of peaks in Colorado. Don't sigh, Karen.
I'm sorry. No, I have to say that's a bluff.
Karen says it's a bluff. The Rocky Beer Climbers do not exist. John, what do you think?
I'm going to say true. Maybe there are hermits up there.
Maybe. So that's the deciding factor for you.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking
If
maybe
there's hermits, then there must be.
People want to get away from it all. Okay,
Yeah.
They probably have provisions for a certain period of time where they can survive. So I'm going to say
And beer's a provision, right?
there is definitely a provision. It's a food. So I'm going to say true.
True. Okay. And Rich?
You have an idea? Yes or no?
Yes, I have the idea of true.
Oh, Rich says it's
True. Okay.
true.
So we have 2 trues and 1 bluff.
Yep.
Guess what, Karen? You're 1 ahead.
Oh,
Yay!
oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'll go be a hermit myself. Maybe I'll go to Colorado. Maybe I get away from it all, and that's where I'll end up.
I know, that's right. It sounds like a good business too. I think that'd be a fun business. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the second story, number 2. Get ready. Have you ever looked at something large that you paid a lot of money for, but don't use anymore and thought, this is nothing but a boat anchor? Well, now you're in luck. A company in Maine called Nothing But a Boat Anchor will turn anything into a boat anchor for a small charge. The price is, they're able to keep the price low because this is considered to be recycling, so the company gets government assistance. It has turned everything from refrigerators to small cars to barbecue grills to outdoor playground sets into boat anchors. If your item doesn't meet the minimum weight requirement for boat anchors, they will combine it with other junk for you. You can either use the anchor for your own boat or donate it to local fishermen who are always in need of new anchors. So they turn anything you have into a boat anchor. Company is called Nothing But a Boat Anchor in Maine.
Nothing but a boat anchor.
True or a bluff? Let's start with John. What do you think, John?
Going true on this one also. True.
John votes true. Karen?
I think it could be true because, why not?
Why not? That's
Well,
my
that's my thought.
Answer.
that's my philosophy. Why not?
I was
And
thinking-
Rich?
Your answer.
How about you?
Yes, and I have something I could turn in.
Oh,
I missed that. What was that?
he said yes, and he has something that he could turn in.
We'll leave that up to imagination, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah, so
please.
that's 3 yeses. Rich goes against the grain,
Yeah.
his normal strategy, and agrees with Karen. So we have 3 yeses. Sorry to all of you. That was also a bluff.
Oh my gosh.
But it'd be a great business.
I am down
Yeah.
2 today.
I know. Sounds like a good business. Okay. We're gonna hurry this one up here. Story number 3. Hands on the buzzer. Worried about what you're gonna eat if things get worse? Thinking about turning your yard into a farm, but you don't know where to start? A company in Germany has brought back an old board game called Agricola, in which players compete to build a farm, raise animals, and plant and harvest vegetables. It's like the old Sim Farm computer game, only it uses cards and dice and a board in case the power goes out. Part of it is luck, like if your kids decide they want to be actors instead of farmers. And part is learning what to plant, when, and how to sell your produce. The winner of Agricola is the player who makes a profit and still has food left over to eat, while the loser ends up eating his cards. Other than that last line, real or bluff? All right, so what do you think? We'll go back to Karen. What do you think, Karen?
I think that's a bluff.
You think it's a bluff? Okay,
Yeah.
you're ahead by 1, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I am.
All right, John, what do you think? Real or
I'm
bluff?
going bluff also. I think it's false.
You think it's a bluff. Agricola is a bluff. Okay.
Rich,
Rich,
what do you think?
what's your strategy this time?
I think it's true.
He's going
Rich
with
thinks that he goes back to his old strategy of disagreeing with Karen. Guess what, Rich? It works. It's a true story. True
one,
story.
Rich.
Agricola, yeah. It's an old, based on a medieval game. And it's a German game, and people like to play it, obviously, because they want to learn about farming.
Sure.
Wow.
If I had to learn about farming, that's the way I'd like to do it, playing a game. So,
Well, I feel
anyways,
terrible because
how about that? So let's see. It was Karen and Rich with 1 apiece. John, I'm sorry.
skunked. I got skunked, Paul.
We have some lovely
back
parting
next
gifts.
Yeah,
Our parting gift is this. Bye, John.
Yes, Rich,
I'll be back. I'll be back next week,
Yeah.
and I'll do better next week.
and Rich got the double pointer, remember?
What's that?
Rich got the double pointer, so he really won.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Points are doubled in.
Yeah.
3.
Hey,
Oh,
Rich.
that's right. So Rich won. Wow,
Yeah.
very good.
He's gloating right now.
I know. We'll give him. You know what? I have a pencil sharpener that I will give to him that he can use to sharpen his fencing sword, and then maybe we'll have a match.
Well, I think with all that said and done, I think we should end today's program.
That's a good.
We're moving right along.
Moving
Yeah.
right along.
Right
Okay.
along.
Well,
And
thank
to
you,
all
John, for joining us as always with What in the World of Sports.
Oh, you're welcome, folks. It was fun. It was fun again, as always.
And
Yes.
thank you, Karen, for everything that you do, being our host, being the media mogul at newclevelandradio.net.
Thank you.
As always, I'll mention it one more time. Please go to newclevelandradio.net. There's a ton of great podcasts there. For more stories like the one you heard from me, go to my site, mysteriousuniverse.org. More stuff on Bigfoot and all that kind of stuff. So there's all the plugs. Other than that, Karen, take it away.
And everybody have a great Father's Day this weekend.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
It's
Father's Day, right.
So remember those guys who sit around and do nothing? They should all get a tie.
And clean underwear.
And
Yeah,
clean-
clean underwear. Good idea.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, see you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye.